A capable wife, who can find? It's quite a passage, actually. Tom noticed that she is quite a woman that is described in this text, and not what one would typically think of in biblical times. But as for me, I have found a capable wife, and I am a capable wife. And between the two of us, we've got 40 years of wifing, so I'm going to talk about something else. It's probably why my wife stayed home, because she didn't want to hear me say that. You know, I've always been taught that context is the key to good preaching and understanding and unpacking the scriptures. It's the context of the community and the folks that you're preaching to, as well as the context of the scriptures. So, y'all probably know that the context that we're living in today is that in 43 days, we're going to be electing a new president. And I don't know about you, but it's not the most fun, relaxed context I've been in quite some time. So how are we to be, and what are we to do? James, the letter of James, asks us to be wise and understanding, and that wisdom is from above, he says. The word wise, sophis or Sophia, which, by the way, in the Greek is feminine, just thought I'd point that out, means clever, skillful, wise, or intelligent. And then he goes on to describe what wisdom from above looks like. He says, wisdom from above is pure, then peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits, without a trace of partiality and hypocrisy. Surely James has never been through a United States election cycle. This, my friends, is a tall order and a high and holy calling. So what do we do? I've been getting in my inbox now for about 12 years or so, daily email called The Daily Good. I commend it to you. It's about something good going on in the world. And so it's quite refreshing, actually. And this week seemed fortuitous on the topics that I wanted to talk about today. The Daily Good was about a group of students from the University of Pennsylvania. They were all in a class called Political Empathy and Deliberative Democracy. And the professor wanted to do some research. And so he took 7 students and himself, and they traveled around Pennsylvania for the summer. And they picked 7 or 8 towns, rural, mostly rural, and various opinions and folks that they were supporting for the election. And they did things like this. They would start to have a conversation. So one conversation was about immigration. And one of the speakers in the conversation had a really negative feeling about all the influx of foreigners. The other person in the conversation was a first-generation American who was a daughter of Moroccan-born parents. And they kept talking. And soon they realized that the man and the woman, both their fathers worked in the same industry. And they had similar experiences dealing with the challenges within their field. And when the conversation was over, there were actually positive feelings as they walked away. And the woman was a recent graduate from the University of Pennsylvania who was participating in the study. Her name was Larrabee, and she said, "This experience has been transformative and healing. It's up to humans in general to be more compassionate and kind and to listen. Because regardless of experience or views, there are reasons why people respond in the way that they do." And then she says this, which I wish I could have said this at 22. "I think it's made me realize how human it is to respond with resentment, or how human it is to even hold a grudge. Empathy truly is a muscle, and it can be only exercised when you let yourself bring your guard down and maybe invite an unpredictable response. to shared vulnerability. Empathy truly is a muscle. That's wisdom from above, I think. So the professor said that he had an idea that if we could connect, if the students could connect with people at a very human level, that they could talk to one another. And that actually happened. They didn't go out to change opinions or argue points, nor they weren't collecting poll data or canvassing for anybody. They were just there to listen. People can tell when we're listening, right? And they can tell when we're not. We're invited to listen with curiosity, intellectual humility, and respect. Sometimes my wife and I, Catherine, talk about how we can shift from, "Are you kidding me?" to, "I'm curious about that. Say more." It works. It really does. And so the class was partially about democratic listening, is what they called it, to develop attitudes and predispositions to listen towards a better understanding of people who do not think the way that you do or I do. And they talked about the 3 B's. There's this notion that if we belong to a group of people or with a group of people, or we feel a sense of belonging, we begin to believe with those folks, and then our behaviors change. Well, they decided to start with behavior. What happens if our behavior is listening and curiosity rather than antagonism or condemnation? Listen. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus, I looked it up and made Google say it, Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we can listen twice as much as we talk." I like it. I often forget it. I guess that's why I went into preaching. Then I get to talk, so that's a good thing. Anyway, I don't want to do too much more with this, but if listening is a skill that we can cultivate and we cultivate it, then people can listen to one another. And the students in that class were a microcosm of the United States, and they were not all on the same political party or the same place on all the issues. I'm sure that is true at St. Luke's. I'm sure that is true in your families. It certainly is in mine, at your workspaces, in your retirement places, on the plane when you're... It's just listening. There's one of the seniors, her name is Autumn, and she said, as she was interviewed for this article, that she'd been vegan for 8 years. And she said people had scolded her, and Thanksgiving dinner was more judgmental than anything that she experienced when she was on the road in this project that they were doing. And she said it reminded her not to judge other people as they talked about different issues. And she says finally, and this is the wisdom of the day, I think, it is kind of hard to not have empathy for someone when you're having a conversation with and they're a person doing their best. People don't live to troll. You're talking to a living, breathing human who has a life and a community. It's not that political views or ideas changed, but it's that they were and cared for one another. I think these students and their professor were practicing wisdom from above, and I think we can learn from them. Dare I say, we must learn from them. And the other thing I think we can do in this season, and maybe this is the first thing we do, James says we draw near to God, and God will draw near to us. I have a little beef with James. Actually, I do in several places in the book of James. But in this particular one, I don't think God's drawing near to us depends on us drawing near to God, because God is always near. But sometimes we aren't able to recognize it. And so we need to have experiences, tangible experiences through others often, right? Jesus says, let the children come. Welcome the children. When you welcome the children, you're welcoming me. I think the last time I was here, I talked about that I was co-leading a pilgrimage to Montgomery. And one of the folks that went on the pilgrimage wanted to bring her 10-year-old son. And there was discussion about that. Should we welcome this child on our pilgrimage or not? I mean, going to Montgomery and the National Memorial for Peace and Justice, which commemorates all the African Americans, 6,000 or 7,000 at least, who were lynched in the last 2 centuries. But we were like, okay, let's bring this child, 10 years old. And every day we would start out, we had a morning prayer and evening prayer, and we'd set our intention for the day, and we were about 17 people, 18 people. And so as we shared our intention, we would share around the room and pray for one another before we started our day. And this 10-year-old shares, he says, my intention is to try and understand how 2 groups of people can be on such different sides and read the same Bible. You know what? I drew near to God because we drew near. I think we all did in that group because we welcomed the child. It was an amazing experience. And since everyone, as far as I know, haven't seen anything to the contrary, is a beloved child of God, let's welcome away, like the University of Pennsylvania students. I mean, the context that Jesus is saying this cracks me up, right? Who is the greatest? After he's been talking about that he's going to die. Who is the greatest? Isn't that what our elections often seem like? I'm the greatest person. I'll be the greatest president, governor, senator. We have the greatest party and we are the greatest country. We're all great, except those of you who aren't. It's a lot of who is the greatest. But the wisdom of God, the wisdom of Jesus, the wisdom that we are invited to step into, the wisdom from on high, is listening, being skillful, intelligent, clever, and wise, and dare I say curious and empathetic. And the wisdom invites us to welcome the children, all of God's children, no matter how old or young they are. And for in doing so, we welcome Jesus. And when we do these things, who is the greatest no longer matters, because we draw near to God, and God draws near to us.